Hello and welcome to our live event with MPUG and Enforso this week. We have Peter Iovino with us, and he'll be presenting on unlocking value, strategic portfolio management, and IT financial management. A few housekeeping things up top. We have the chat open. We're here on Zoom, so we welcome you to say hello in the chat. Feel free to ask questions. We will pause throughout the presentation to address questions, and we would love to hear your questions and make sure we're answering those as we go. We'll also save some time for Q&A at the end, but you are welcome to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand using the raise your hand feature, which if you move your mouse down, there will be in the center of your bottom control bar there, a raise hand feature. If you want to unmute and ask a question, we'll welcome you to do that too. Just raise your hand first. I will share the PMI claim code for your PDU credits at the end of the session. Just a little note on that. I'm going to share the MPUG code and the PMI generated code. A few of our members have been having a little bit of trouble getting that to work. So I'll stick around at the end as well if you want to try the code. And you can let me know in the chat if you have any issues, or you can always email us at editor@mpug.com, and I'd be happy to help you troubleshoot that so we get your credit. Also, if we have time, I love to mention our community discussion forum and take a little tour of that at the end. So if you have time, feel free to stick around. And in the meantime, we're going to get started with Peter's session. So Peter, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Morgan. Really look forward to our topic today. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to this great MPUG event. As Morgan said, I'm Peter Iovino. Very excited to be here with you and explore a topic that's been around for a while, but is still increasingly critical for organizations navigating complexity and change. Morgan mentioned our topic, unlocking value, strategic portfolio management, and IT financial management. Over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to lead large-scale technology and transformation initiatives across different industries, including life sciences, financial services, and utilities, among others. I've learned firsthand how organizations struggle to connect strategy with execution, and how financial visibility can make or break an IT portfolio's success. Today, we will deep dive into both strategic portfolio management and IT financial management, and we'll talk about how they can help you in some key ways. Help you align your investments with business priorities, help you drive accountability and transparency across your organization, and ultimately, how to unlock more value from your product, project, and technology portfolios overall. I'd like to share throughout some practical insights, lessons learned, as well as tools to help you move from a reactive to a strategic. I mean, this could be whether you're running a PMO, managing IT budgets, or supporting an enterprise transformation. So as Morgan already mentioned, feel free to raise your hand, come off mute, and ask a question. Or drop a question in the chat. I'll definitely try to pause after almost every slide to address that question as we go along, or we can save some for the end as well. So either way, let's get started. Okay, let's take a quick look at what we'll be covering today. As I mentioned, the session is designed to be both strategic and practical, giving you tools and insights you can apply right away within your organizations. We'll definitely start by outlining what you can expect to take away from today's sessions, our learning objectives. And whether you're focused on improving financial transparency, aligning investments to strategy, or enabling better decision-making across your portfolio, I think there's a lot to take away from today's discussion. We'll definitely jump right in first with IT financial management best practices. We'll explore proven approaches to ITFM, how to track, manage, and communicate the value of your IT spend. This will include budgeting, forecasting, and cost transparency techniques that support smarter planning. Then we'll jump into the strategic portfolio management components and specifically how to maximize value from your IT investments. We'll look at how to go beyond cost control and actually drive value. ensuring that every dollar spent on IT contributes to business outcomes. Throughout, I'll share some examples of how organizations are doing this effectively today. Then we'll hit where the real power comes in, integrating ITFM with SPM, connecting financial efficiency with strategic portfolio management. We'll talk about how to align funding with priorities, manage trade-offs, and create a unified view of the performance of your IT organization. And then we'll wrap up with a summary of the most important insights from today's sessions, and hopefully leave you with a few actionable items and next steps to take back to your organizations. Okay, so I'm sure you're familiar with the approach from similar MPUG webinars, and I did want to make sure we were clear and outline the learning objectives you could expect from today's session. Again, these are the outcomes that I hope you walk away with. As I mentioned, we'll start by grounding ourselves in fundamentals, what effective IT financial management looks like today, sharing some strategies for identifying inefficiencies in your IT budget, and how to eliminate waste without compromising performance. We will definitely talk about how to optimize your IT budget allocation, how to shift from reactive budgeting to strategic allocation. As we know, the goal here is to free up resources for innovation and transformation, while ensuring that every dollar spent is aligned to your organizational goals. Okay, and looking at these learning objectives, I think I covered the next two, when I talked through the agenda, but I do want to point out the last objective on the page, and that's enhance strategic decision-making. Before the last objective is to make sure we talk about how ITFM and SPM can empower better decision-making within your organizations at the executive level. With the right financial insights, you can support more confident, data-driven decisions that align with long-term strategy. Okay, so these are the objectives that'll guide our discussion today, and I encourage you to think about how each one of these is going to apply to your own organizations as we go. Okay, so before we jump in, I wanted to just pause here and ground our conversation in a key concept: fiscal responsibility, not just as a budgeting exercise, but as a strategic discipline. I really think this quote captures the essence of what we're aiming to accomplish with IT financial management. First of all, it's about stewardship, treating every dollar as an investment, not just as an expense. It's also about purpose, making sure that spend is aligned with outcomes, not just with activities. And finally, it's about optimization, consistently looking for ways to improve, reallocate, and drive more value from the same or fewer resources. Okay, so before we jump into the content, Morgan, anything we're seeing in the chat that we wanted to answer?
I don't have any questions in the chat yet. Everyone just feel free to chime in whenever you have a question. We'll get to you.
Thank you, Morgan. Okay, great. So let's dive in to some of the core best practices that define effective IT financial management. These are the foundational elements that help organizations start with effective cost tracking and then move on to mature to proactive value creation. So how can we move from cost tracking to value creation? The first best practice I want to talk about is establishing financial transparency. We all need to start by creating a clear, shared understanding of IT costs across the organization. You see these costs outlined here in the center of the slide, all adding up to a total cost of IT. But it's not just about a clear shared understanding of these different costs. It is also about breaking down silos between finance, IT, and business units. If we don't do that, we won't be able to make costs visible, traceable, and explainable. The second best practice we want to take a look at is linking all spend to business outcomes. Every dollar spent on IT should be tied to a business capability or to a strategic objective. This linkage helps justify investments, prioritize funding, and communicate value to stakeholders. The next best practice I want to talk about is implement cost allocation models. We've all done this to some extent in the past, but it's critical. Use chargeback or showback models to allocate costs to departments or services. This encourages accountability and helps business units understand the true cost of the services they consume. Now let's move on to a couple that we don't always all do that well. Enable forecasting and scenario planning. If we're going to do IT financial management right, we need to move beyond static budgets. We need to use forecasting tools and scenario models to anticipate changes, adjust plans, and optimize spending, if not in real time, but on an ongoing basis. All of this leads to the fact that in order to do IT financial management right, we finally need to adopt a continuous improvement mindset. We need to treat ITFM as an ongoing discipline, not just a one-time initiative. We need to regularly review financial performance, identify inefficiencies, and look for opportunities to reinvest savings into innovation. This is at the heart of a lot of what we're going to be talking about, reinvesting savings into innovation when we look at our strategic portfolio. Okay, I did mention in the beginning, we are going to go into some examples. So let me start with an example of a life sciences firm I've worked with recently. And one division of a large pharmaceutical client was undergoing a digital transformation. In addition to this digital transformation, they had an overall IT budget of close to $400 million. However, when they took a closer look, they realized that less than $40 million, just 10% of their total spend, was available for strategic projects. The rest was tied up in workforce costs, depreciation, software licensing, and the other things you see here on the slide. Well, by implementing leading IT financial management practices, especially around the core fundamental of spend transparency, they were able to more than double their strategic investment capacity. So what do I mean by that? They increased their available budget for innovation to nearly $100 million, over 25% of their total IT spend, without increasing their overall IT budget. We can see that this is the power of visibility and detailed financial management. It unlocks value that's already there so that the organization can work on it. So here we have best practices from the backbone of a mature ITFM capability. And they're essential for organizations, your organization, that wants to make smarter, more strategic decisions about where and how they invest in technology. Hi, Morgan. I see that we've gotten a couple of chats. I can see it pop up, but I can't see the questions.
Okay, no problem. It's a question about your slideshow. We want to make sure that we're on the right slide with you, or if there's an issue with them changing. So right now I'm seeing the IT financial management best practices slide.
Yes, I didn't want to bore everybody with slides. So I was talking to the case study while keeping the fundamental best practices up. And I'll kind of do that throughout. I'm going to have the slide that shows content, but not necessarily look to drain the slides. Talk to the concept so that the team can take away the slides, in the recording, but also just hear some real life experience while we're talking to the slides.
Sounds good. I'll let you know if we think we have a technical issue, but I think we're all right.
Okay, great. Well, before we go any further, I did want to get a quick pulse from everybody. I wanted to ask for you to take a moment to reflect on your organization's current state of IT financial management and drop your answer in the chat. You can see the question here. I'm curious as to how mature are your organization's IT financial management practices? Choose the option that best describes what you would describe as your current state. Maybe not your desired state, your current state. And you see the options from very mature organizational practices, which would be well-defined and a culture of continuous improvement, all the way down through initial, maybe having no formal process. Again, there's no right or wrong answer here, just a great way to see where everyone is on their journey. And if you take a moment to respond, maybe Morgan will mention some of the responses we're seeing, and then we'll move on.
Yep. You can go ahead and drop it in the chat. Your answer is we're seeing a lot of B. I saw somewhere between B and C for someone. We've got one person saying D, lots of B's. There's another C. Yeah, I think most of us responding are between B and C with a few people who are saying D. I don't see any A's in the chat at the moment. We've got some more
Okay.
B's.
You know, it's really interesting and not necessarily surprising, and we'll compare when we have a similar question later on strategic portfolio management. I think IT financial management is something that almost all organizations are aware of, right? And even taken an attempt to improve what they've done in the past. But very mature is difficult to achieve, even from some of those best practices that I started with. You know, I've seen organizations where maybe the IT finance folks do it well, but they're not sharing it with their business partners, or the finance group, central finance group, is separate from their IT group. So there's not a lot of consistency in what aspects are being looked at and in the understanding of and transparency around those aspects or components of IT financial management. So it's understandable why some folks feel like they have something, but that they feel like they can do better. So that is very interesting to hear. All right, let's keep going. Share some more content and some more discussion around that content. All right, next we're going to talk about strategic portfolio management and specifically try to get into how to maximize value from IT investments. So I think most of us know that strategic portfolio management is more than just tracking projects. Really, at the heart of portfolio management, it's about aligning every initiative with business strategy and making sure that your resources are focused on what matters most. Again, I'd like to start by talking about a few best practices to keep in mind. And just to keep us aligned somewhat with the slide, since the question came up on the previous one, a lot of these best practices are reflected throughout the SPM cadence in the middle of this, the slide. So first of all, the first best practice I want you to keep in mind is that we really need to be aligning everything within our portfolio with strategic objectives. Ensure that every project or program is clearly tied to a business goal. This alignment helps justify funding and helps keep teams focused on outcomes. This is key. Now, another element or a next best practice would be prioritized to based on value and risk. Okay, we need to use scoring models or value frameworks to evaluate initiatives based on impact, urgency, and risk. And I'm not going into multiple different types of scoring models today, but we know there's a way to align to strategic objectives or calculate ROI. Any or all of these will allow you to make informed trade-offs when resources are limited. I think on top of these basics of aligning portfolios with objectives and making sure we have some prioritization techniques is to really start to enable real-time visibility. So what could be aligned to this execute and monitor stage would be to use dashboards and reporting tools that give stakeholders a clear, up-to-date view of portfolio performance. Now, when I present on these type of topics live, I see a lot of head nodding that goes on that says, well, we're doing something today, but is it truly clear, up-to-date view, and can you dive deep into current performance of projects, programs, products within the portfolio? We know that if we're doing this right, transparency is going to build trust and enable faster decision-making. In addition to just real-time visibility, we definitely want to get governance teams together, establish governance and a review cadence, a regular governance and review cadence. Regular portfolio reviews help ensure that priorities stay aligned as business needs evolve. This is especially important in dynamic environments like a specific IT or digital transformation. All right, let's talk about then, once we have these SPM practices in place, how do we ensure that IT investments are delivering measurable value? I don't have this on the slide, but let's talk to how you can make sure you maximize value from your IT investments. First of all, you need to define value metrics early. Don't wait until the end of a project to define success. Establish KPIs and value metrics upfront, whether it's cost savings, revenue impact, customer experience, whatever metrics you're tracking, make sure you define them early and upfront. Because then you'll have the ability to track benefit realization. This is the biggest gap I see in organizations when we talk about maturity for strategic portfolio management, when we talk about maximizing value. If we're not tracking benefit realizations, we're not able to validate the ROI and inform future investment decisions. So again, we need to build processes that track and report on benefits over time, not just during the project execution, but after its delivery. Finally, in order to maximize value, we have to reallocate underperforming spend. Another difficult piece for organizations to get to. We need to use that performance data that we said we were going to track and we were going to monitor. We need to use performance data to identify initiatives that are not delivering expected value. And we have to be willing to pivot or reallocate those resources to higher impact areas. The client example I'd like to talk about with this slide up is one that I title Recalibrating for Value, and it's around a Northeast utility company. So a large utility in the Northeast discovered a critical gap in their portfolio management approach. And I think it's one that you're going to see in most of your organizations as well. They were not stopping underperforming projects, even those projects that failed to deliver expected value or meet business objectives, and even somewhat meet business objectives. To address this, they implemented a quarterly portfolio review as part of their execute and monitor stage. And this process allowed them to do a number of things. First of all, on a regular basis, in this case quarterly, reassess project performance against strategic goals. How well were they doing? And then reallocate funding from low value or stalled projects to higher impact initiatives. Obviously, you need to get the executive buy-in to this approach and to the data that they're looking at in order to be able to make those types of decisions. Finally, they were also able to redirect unused funds to other strategic priority. So what I mean by that, if projects hadn't started or if they were unable to get started, they reused those funds and gave them to other areas where the budget that was underutilized. So the overall gain here is that this disciplined approach not only improved the ROI across their portfolio, but it fostered a culture of accountability and agility as they were making ongoing investment decisions. Okay, so as we talk about improving IT financial management, strategic portfolio management, it's also important to recognize that how we work is just as critical as what we manage. And as a lot of you know, this is where agile ways of working come in. Not just, of course, as a methodology, but as a mindset shift that'll enable faster value delivery, better collaboration, and more adaptive planning. When working with clients on agile ways of working and implementing agile ways of working, we always recommend a crawl, walk, run approach. We need to start small and build confidence when we're introducing agile ways of working. Agile adoption doesn't have to be all or nothing. In a crawl phase, focus on piloting agile practice to a few teams or projects. This is about learning, experimenting, and building internal champions without overwhelming the organization. Let me take a step back here. This could just be for a specific transformation project, set of projects where you have new business sponsors involved, those that aren't involved, understanding agile ways of working in the past. But we want to make sure that we're adopting and implementing agile at scale to help improve the flexibility and delivery of a transformation program. So back to the overall crawl, walk, run approach. Once you've started small and building confidence, you can move on to expand and standardize, right? Once you've proven success in small pockets, move into the walk phase by scaling agile practices across more teams. Introduce shared ceremonies, consistent tooling, and lightweight governance to support coordination and alignment. Finally, your goal is going to be to get to, whether it's for an individual transformation set of projects or for your whole organization, you're going to look to get to the run phase, to where you can institutionalize and optimize, where agile becomes part of your culture. Your goal is to have your teams empowered, backlogs aligned to strategy, and value delivery being continuous. At this stage, it's when you can definitely integrate agile with financial and portfolio management to drive enterprise agility. I think we all know that no matter where you are on this journey, and most of you are some point on this journey, that no matter where you are, change management is critical. Success depends on things like leadership support, clear communication, and ongoing coaching to help teams adopt their new ways of working and thinking. The client example I'd like to talk to while this slide is up is one about driving agile adoption at a financial services client. This client was facing challenges in adopting agile methodologies across a set of digital transformation initiatives. And initially, after the first quarter of work, fewer than 33% of the projects were utilizing agile practices. To address this, the client set up a few things. First of all, they implemented a centralized tracking dashboard that consolidated agile storyboards and epics. Then they established milestone tracking, ensuring visibility into progress and alignment with business goals. And finally, they set up shared weekly reports with executive sponsors to maintain accountability and momentum. As a result of these three items, agile adoption surged to over 80% of their projects in a single quarter, significantly improving delivery speed, transparency, and stakeholder engagement.